या मोबाइल से आएंगे।
Hello. সোমালো কিন্তু সব মিউট হৈ আছে নেকি সাউন্ডটো আহা নাই সাউন্ড স্ট্রিম আচ্ছা আচ্ছা মোৰটো আনমিউট কৰি দি চোৱাচোন মোৰ আৱাজ গৈছে নে নাই
I can hear you, sir.
Oh yes thank you
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon everyone, good afternoon Mr. Avinash. Oh, good morning to Avinash, of course. It's good morning there, I believe.
And very good morning to Mr. Avinash Barua.
Please just call me Avinash. I'm not used to being called Mr. Barua.
Yeah.
Good afternoon to you.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Sir, Rishi sir, can you hear me? Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, I can hear you.
Sir, when do we start? Should we wait for another 5 minutes?
It is up to you. I think if you wait for more time, then will it serve the purpose? Because it was already announced regarding the time, no?
Okay, then now we'll be starting exactly at 3, sir.
Yes, yes, we'll start exactly
sir.
at 3.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Monjit, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good afternoon and a hearty welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining this virtual webinar on preparing for life in the digital age. We all agree that the ability to use information and communication technology is imperative for effective participation in today's digital age. This webinar, it aims at getting you ready for a life in the digital age. Students, you'll be happy to know that your speaker for today's session happens to be an alumni of your own college, Keynote Commerce College. So friends, gear up for an interesting session ahead. As per the agenda, may I now request the inaugurator of today's event, Dr. Rishikesh Borua, Principal Keynote Commerce College, to deliver his inaugural speech. Sir, over to you.
Thank you. Am I audible to all?
Yes, sir.
Respected Mr. Avinash Borua, today's resource person and who has joined us from the Open University in the United Kingdom, my dear colleagues, and above all, my dear students. At the very outset, on behalf of KC Das Commerce College, I welcome all of you to this virtual arena where Mr. Avinash Borua will highlight on various aspects of how to prepare oneself in today's digital world. Well, I'm very happy to share with you all, my dear students, that Mr. Borua happened to study at one point of time in his life in your college. And today, he has achieved a lot in his field of specialization. And you will be all happy to know that he has been awarded for his research activities in teaching, learning, and various aspects by the prestigious Open University. Yesterday also he was with us, and yesterday we had a very fruitful session where we discussed for more than 1 hour on how to carry on with the teaching. So these are the learning things we have been experiencing over the past few sessions. In fact, today's is the 4th webinar that KC Das Commerce College has organized during this period of pandemic. Well, during this period of pandemic, I also have been interacting with you on various occasions, and I've been telling you, and today also I would like to say that this is not the first time that a pandemic has affected the world. And believe me, this will not be the last one too, right? And it is because of interferences of various ecosystems. And leading this interference is no one else but we human beings. Do you have any idea like when our art was born? Well, that was long back, 4,600 millions of years back. For any other person, it is hard to gauge that how long would be that time span. But in order to understand, if we suppose that our art was born just 24 hours back, then we human beings landed on Earth just around 1 minute 20 seconds back. And imagine within this 1 minute and 20 seconds, how much we have achieved. How much we have achieved. Just imagine, and we have achieved so much. It is because of our curiosity. It is because of the fact that we run after knowledge, right? We like to see, we like to understand what is unexplored. And in this process, we gain a lot, and sometimes we face the negative things also. And today, these days happens to be one such where we never expected that something which is of nanometer dimension will make us all stay inside our home. But then that is not going to be the long. That is not going to be very long. Very soon we will win over this coronavirus and we will be again coming back. But then again, please remember, when we will come out, the normal would not be like the way it was a couple of months back. It will be a new normal. And in this new normal, we have to adapt to the new situations. So adaptation is the key here. Everyone adapts. Let me give you the example of a snail, right? You must have all seen the snails here and there, everywhere. Even sometimes it comes to your bathroom also, to your bedroom also sometimes, right? So you may not be aware of the fact that these snails, when they evolved, they were marine organisms. They originated in the sea. But today, they have adapted themselves because of various reasons, and they have adapted themselves in such a way that today they are comfortable in the land areas, they are comfortable in the place where you are. So that is adaptation, right? So everyone adapts. All organisms try to adapt, okay? And adaptation is because in life there are lots of ups and downs, lots of obstacles. If I ask you all that how many of you love the rose plant, the rose flowers, you must be thinking, yesterday also I talked about that because it came to my mind just yesterday. Okay. So if I ask you that how many of you like the rose plant, you must be thinking that, well, what kind of question is sir asking? Everyone likes the rose plant. It is because everyone loves roses. Well, look at the rose plant. How many roses are there? Right? In the most beautiful of the rose plants, you will not see that many roses, but there, if you look at the plant, you will see much, many times more thorns, right? So life is like that. Lots of thorns are there, and in between those thorns, there are roses also. And by the roses, I mean to say about the opportunities. So within the thorns, there are lots of opportunities. So it is for us to decide that whether we will fight back, whether we will move ahead, or whether we will just stay back how it is, and whether we will let us ourselves surrounded by the negativities. So then don't let yourself surrounded by the negativities. Opportunities are there everywhere. It is all in your mind that whether you are in the mood to fight back, whether you are in the mood to unearth the unknown and run for knowledge, right? All of you are all of you are Facebook users. I know that, right? And most of the times we use Facebook just as a social networking medium, right? But then just search the Facebook. Even in the Facebook, you will see there are many platforms on commerce and management, right? From how to prepare balance sheet to many things of commerce are there. So you see, even within that social media platform of Facebook, there are many things which can deliver knowledge to us, right? So as I said, in this age of the post COVID-19, there will be many new normals, and we will have to survive, we will have to excel in this new normal environment, right? And which will be a digital one in many ways, right? And so we cannot complain. We cannot say that, oh well, I don't know about these digital gadgets, so I don't want to do this thing or that, right? If you think like that, then the other people will move ahead of you, right? So let us take this opportunity to learn how we can survive, how we can develop ourselves, how we can excel in this digital age. And for that, today we are very happy to have Mr. Avinash Barua, who has an expertise, a lot of expertise in this particular aspect. So Mr. Barua will highlight many things on how to survive and how to excel in life in this digital age. So I once again thank Mr. Avinash Barua for giving us this time for second day, right, to be amongst us. And I'm pretty sure that after the students listen to you, they will be very much highlighted. And not only the students, all the participants will be very highlighted, will gain a lot from your speech. So I once again congratulate team IQAC of Kesidas Commerce College for organizing this event. And thank you all. Thank you a lot.
Thank you so much, sir. You have always been a constant source of motivation for us. Before I hand over the reins to our esteemed speaker, Mr. Avinash Barua, I take the pleasure of introducing him to our young minds. Avinash Barua, popularly known as Avi, is presently working as the project lead, Data and Management Information in the Open University, situated in Milton Keynes in the United Kingdom. He obtained his BCom degree with a specialization in management, followed by a master's in business administration from the University of Strathclyde. While his dissertation was in strategy, his electives were program and project management, project risk analysis and management, and leadership. Mr. Borwa has over 7 years experience of program and project management, with the last 4 in change management and digital transformation. He is experienced in using various program management methodologies, including Agile, Prince2, etc., to manage projects and in delivering outcomes and benefits that aligns to institutional strategic objectives. As project lead, he leads a team that is involved in piloting predictive analytics to help the Open University understand how best to use this data to provide personalized support to students and thereby improve retention. He has helped develop the Open University's policy on the ethical use of student data for learning analytics, arguably the first of its kind in the higher education worldwide. He has around 15 publications and many conference papers to his credit. He has been honored with the Open University Research Excellence Award for Outstanding Impact on Teaching, Curriculum, and Students category. At such an early age, he has had the privilege of working with the Open University in the United Kingdom, Keynote in Sheffield, UK, and IIT and GenPact, New Delhi, and even in Bajaj Allianz, Shillong. You'll be happy to know that in his free time, he channelizes his interest into cricket, wildlife photography, and building model aircrafts. So this is in brief about Avinash. So before we get started, I would just like to share a few housekeeping rules with you, friends. During the question and answer session, it is compulsory for you to turn on the video. I would also like to request my student friends to type their questions in the chat box during the course of the webinar, and we would bring them up during the interactive session towards the end. And I'm very happy to share that this program, this webinar, is also on YouTube Live. So now we will be handing over the host to Avinash.
Thank you, Dr. Barwa, and thank you, Anjita ma'am, for such stellar accolades. I don't think I'm deserving of that. I'm just a human being. I just want to start off by saying that. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for giving up your time today to attend this webinar. Tony, could I just ask you to make me the host? Okay, yes, you have made me the host. Thank you. So, Dr. Barwa has actually talked about adaptability, flexibility, and the need for curiosity, and those were some of the things, incidentally, that I was planning to cover in my presentation as well. So, you'll see the connection between what Dr. Barwa has just said and what I'll end up saying to you as well. Before we start, just quick plan for the session. I'm planning to speak for about 30 minutes. I don't intend to bore you with me going on and on about what I think. We'll have a time about 15-20 minutes at the end for questions and discussion. I would request you to put your microphones as well as your video on or switched off throughout the duration of my presentation, but you can use the chat box to add your questions. please also raise your hands, use the raise hand function if you have any burning questions and you want me to stop and explain anything that I've been covering. And finally, just keep an open mind. So before we go on ahead and I talk to you about how to survive in the digital age, can I, through either show of hands or actually in the chat box, could you type how currently the current situation where you've had to move from a face-to-face environment of learning to an online environment of learning, how does it make you feel? Type in 1 in the chat box if you think that you're starting to panic. Type in 2 in the chat box if you think you're struggling and you need help. Type in 3 if you're feeling demotivated, and 4 if you're actually feeling, this is great. I love technology and I really love this environment.
চ্যাট করাও শুরু করে দিছে কি কোশ্চেন জিজ্ঞাসা শুনুন ম্যাডাম 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 কি করতেছি
Okay, that's interesting. Most of you have typed 4. There's a few people who have typed 3. And interestingly, and I apologize to the teachers in this session, but yesterday when I asked the teachers the same question, most of the teachers felt demotivated because of the entire transition to online learning and the difficulties around how to teach online. Yes, I have 2 participants who've raised their hands. How can I help you? Neha, how can I help you? Okay. I'm going to move on unless, Neha, if you want, you can type your questions into the chat box itself. So interesting. Most of you, it sounds like most of you feel quite encouraged and enthusiastic about the fact that we are moving to an environment where it's online and using technology. But I'll just talk to you about a few of the challenges that I think are around switching to online delivery. The first being, once you switch to online delivery, the onus is on you to motivate yourself and to continue studying and making sure that you are continuing with your studies. The responsibility is yours. The second challenge that you'll have is how do you manage time effectively to make sure that you can devote your time to each and every aspect of your learning. The third challenge you'll have is digital literacy. So the ability to use technology or use technology for a particular purpose. So for example, yesterday was the first time that I was using Zoom to have a video conference. While I have used Zoom, used other video conferencing facilities, I have not been able to use Zoom in the past, so I had to familiarize myself before I could use anything. Bear with me just 1 second. Apologies, everyone. Just a little bit of a technical issue I had at my end. And finally, you are accountable for your own studies and your learning. In addition to this, you might find that rather than in a face-to-face environment where you have the opportunity to not only come to a classroom and interact with your teachers, but it's the post teaching active interactivity that you engage with your fellow students, which you might find missing, and that might leave you feeling very isolated. The other challenge is that in an online learning scenario, the teacher seems to be invisible, whereas in a face-to-face learning environment, you will have the teacher standing in front of the class and teaching you. The next challenge is around what technology to use, and then understanding and then overcoming the technical issues that you might face once you've chosen the technology. So for example, I'll use Zoom as another example. One of my friends who teaches in Maria School in Guwahati was asked to start move to online teaching, and the first session that she had with her students, which were class 11 students, for most of the 40-minute session, she spent helping them come to grips with the technology. So Zoom in itself enables us to have video conferences and teleconferences and things like that. However, if the participants do not know how to use the technology, you're going to spend most of your time overcoming the technical issues rather than focusing on what you need to be doing. So, and then finally, the biggest challenge some of you might have is connectivity, because some of you might live in a shadow area where there is no mobile network, there is no Wi-Fi, there is no broadband. What do you do in that situation? Those are the kind of challenges that you will have when you're switching to online learning. However, let's talk about the benefits of online learning. The key thing is that as a student, you have control over your own learning. With this, if most of you have watched Spider-Man, there's a line in it which says, with great power comes great responsibility. Similarly, in your situation, while you have control over your learning, the onus or the responsibility is with you to be diligent about that. The other advantage is that content is easily accessible. So again, I apologize to the teachers, but there have been situations, probably I'm talking to the student participants here, where you've either missed a class unintentionally, or you've missed a class, as in bunked the class, intentionally. In that situation, when you're preparing for your exam, you kind of regret that you missed that class because, oh, I wish I was in that class, because maybe I wouldn't be struggling with this topic just now. In an online environment, if you because you're in control of your own learning and you're able to set your own pace, let's say you miss a class because of other commitments, you have the ability to go back to that session. So for example, if a session is recorded or even the material is made available online, it makes your life easier to catch up. It gives you the convenience and flexibility. So rather than a 9-to-5 approach, online learning can enable you to have a different lifestyle, essentially. So at this point in time, your lifestyle is dictated by the routine for the college that you go to. In an online environment, potentially there is a chance, there is a scenario where the study routine is not dictated by the college or the university that you go to, but actually your own time and your own discipline. One of the benefits of online learning, however, is that because of the frequency of assessments, because of the way the online learning needs to happen, because of the frequency of assessments, it helps focus students and their study. Next, it allows for a more comfortable learning environment. So at the moment, most of you are in the comfort of your living rooms or your rooms. All our videos are off. We could actually be sitting in our pajamas and still engaging in learning. And I don't mean that flippantly. It just gives you a more comfortable environment to learn in. The other thing is that online learning enables you to improve your technical skills. Give me 1 second. Sorry, I seem to be having some technical issues again. So as I was saying, in an online environment, you're able to improve your technical skills. Some inadvertent benefits of the move to online and engaging with online learning. Some of you who have to commute a long distance to get to your college, moving to an online delivery system negates the need for you to commute. And if you push the boat further and start thinking out of the box, if people stop going to a physical college, one of the things might be that it might have a positive effect on pollution in the city that you live in. I'm sure most of you who travel to college either travel by bikes, scooters, buses, trains. So if even the 50 of you who are participating on this webinar do not commute, that reduces our carbon footprint as well. So now for a little bit of interactivity. How many of you agree with this statement? Please use the raise hand option or type yes in the chat box. And it's all right to say no. Okay, I've got 10 responses out of 54 participants. Thank you, Sanjay. Thank you, Manjit. Thank you, Chandni. Okay, that's brilliant. So all those people who are saying yes to the fact that they have a clear idea of what their career is going to be once they graduate, what do you think of this statement? Thank you, Priyanka. Thank you. So you all kind of agree with what I'm going to say now, which is that we are in an age where we have to be lifelong learners. We have to continue to improve our skills and our abilities. And actually, what's also interesting is that Dell did some research. Dell Technologies did some research in 2017, where the research showed that 85% of the jobs that will exist in 2030 haven't even been invented yet. Which means that in our work life, we'll have to continue changing. Next, they carried on and said that the pace of change will be so rapid that people will learn in the moment using new technologies. And finally, they went on to say that what would be more valuable is the ability to gain knowledge rather than the knowledge that you have. So I'm just going to talk to you about my learning journey, and bear with me because I'm not trying to talk about myself here, but I just want to use myself as an example here. So I started off, did my primary and secondary schooling in Shillong in St. Edmunds. Then I went to faculty higher secondary school, and I gave my CBSE board class 12 exams in 1997. And I failed my maths paper, and I had to, I decided to take the compartmental route. So if you fail, you have the option of either repeating a year or going down the compartmental route. And I decided to take the compartmental route, which meant that when it came to, by the time I passed my compartmental exams, all the admissions were over, and no college would actually entertain the idea of giving me admission, except for the then principal of KC Das Commerce College, Dr. Hitesh Dekka. So part of me telling my story is to actually thank KC Das Commerce College for helping that boy in 1997. After I graduated in 2000, so I spent 1 year in KC Das Commerce College, and then I took a transfer to Guwahati Commerce College, mainly because I used to live in Zoo Narangi Road, and a daily commute from Zoo Narangi Road to KC Das Commerce College, especially in a scenario where I used to have to walk all the way, was something that I wanted to avoid. That's the reason why I moved to Guwahati Commerce College. So once I graduated, I had different careers, but I settled in a career despite having a specialization in management. I settled in a career that was that of a trainer and an instructional designer. An instructional designer is somebody who designs training. But then in 2007, I decided that one point I want to make is that when I left, finished my BCom in 2000, I thought that was the end of my studies. I never wanted to study again. And Anjita ma'am can attest to that fact. So anyway, in 2007, I realized that I actually do need to study again. So I went to the University of Strathclyde to do my MBA. At which point I came to the realization that I didn't know how to learn. So in that context, going back to what the Dell report was saying, and what you have said, that we have to become lifelong learners, I just thought I'd talk to you about the skills which are the most transferable skills. Yes, I have 3 people who have raised their hands. Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question. Sumana, Satrupa, do you want to ask a question? Sumana? Okay, I'm going to move on then. So the key skills that okay, no worries, Satrupa, it's okay. The key skills that I wanted to highlight, firstly, is creativity. Creativity is the key skill that you need to to bring in innovation. Creativity and problem solving enables us to bring in innovation. Problem solving on its own enables us to deal with life's, not just life's problems on a day-to-day basis, but also problems in the work context as well. Critical thinking is about being able to be able to think independently, responsibly, and productively. So it's about looking at something and being able to say, give your own opinion to it, and an honest opinion. I've already talked about the need for personal motivation. The next skill we are looking at is leadership. Not only do you need to strive to be good at what you do, you need to be somebody who needs to be able to move people from saying, or inspire, motivate, and empower people. So the true leaders see the best in people and they teach them to harness their potential in all they do. And that's a key skill that you need yourself as well. Communication, written and verbal, is key to being a lifelong learner. Another key skill which most of us take for granted is listening. We're always happy to talk to people, but how much of our time do we spend listening? So listening is a key skill that you need to develop as well. Information management. So most of you would be familiar with all the fake news issues that were around when Donald Trump got elected. Some of you will also remember the Cambridge Analytica scandal. So information management talks about the skills that you need to understand what information is genuine, what information is spurious or questionable. And it's an aspect of your research and analytical skills in terms of being able to identify the right information that you need, and being also able to provide attribution to the right to the sources of information. So by that I mean referencing the right sources. In addition to that, information management also extends to the security, how secure your information is. So things that you can start building into your own practice are things like the use of online cloud platforms to store your information rather than just simply putting it on your computer. So Google Drive is an example where you get free online storage system. Now, that skill, if I was to transfer that into the workplace, that skill is related to information security, information storage, configuration management. Those are all careers people make, and it all stems from your ability to understand how to manage information. Shivam, do you want to ask me a question? Shivam, if you want to ask me a question, you need to unmute yourself and ask the question, or type the question in the chat box. Then I've talked about the research and analytical skills. You need to be able to identify the right information. In addition to that, you need to be able to, Dr. Barwa talked about us being adaptive and flexible. And that's something that you need to build into your practice to be a lifelong learner. Dr. Barwa also talked about curiosity, and I think curiosity is something that no one can teach you. You have to inculcate that for yourself. I would also say reflective practice alongside curiosity is something that you need to think about as well. By reflective practice, I mean that if you've done something, if you've set up something, or if you've created something, let's say, so let's talk about a carpenter who's building a chair. The carpenter's built the chair, but through that process, they're building the chair for the first time. Through that process, they've learned how to build the chair. But through reflective practice, the carpenter will be able to think about how to build the chair better the next time. The next skill that you have to have is organization and time management. How that translates into the workplace is that most people with very good organization and time management skills end up having a career in either project management or change management or both. Collaboration and teamwork. Believe me, when you're working as a student, when you're working on collaborative projects with other students, it's the most frustrating activity to engage in, because the biggest complaint from students is, why should I put in all the effort when person X is getting the same mark as me and they haven't put in the same effort as me? But believe me, just engage with the activity to build up your skills so that you can then transfer that skill into your work environment. Data literacy and numeracy is a key skill in tomorrow's world, in the digital age, because data itself is being treated as an asset now. Most companies start looking at not only the information that they have as their own assets, but they also look at the data that they gather and use as their own assets as well. So being able to manipulate data is a key skill that you need to think about how to develop. Technological literacy, I've talked about it in terms of understanding the technology that you're working with, making sure that you understand the new features. So for example, when KC Das Commerce College made available the application that you're using for online learning, how many of you actually, can you just raise your hands? How many of you actually investigated the app thoroughly to understand what features the app has? Okay. How many of you then looked at those features and got in touch with either the principal or Anjita ma'am or Tony in KC Das Commerce College to talk to them about what additional features would be helpful? Thank you. This is what I mean about technological literacy alongside curiosity. So is that curiosity that has led you to investigate what features the apps have. And all those students who said, I investigated it further, I think you have a job to do to help those students who struggle using technology. Sounds like you guys have a better grasp of technology, so you should help your other fellow students who might be struggling using the app. Just an idea. And last but not the least, you need to, as a lifelong learner, decide what subject area you want to be the expert in, and then develop the subject matter expertise, bearing in mind that subject matter expertise will need to change as you go along. So we've got 17 of these icons on screen, 17 of these skills that you would need to develop as a lifelong learner. And I'm not saying that this is the exhaustive list. These are the things that I could think of. But looking at this list, use the chat box to just tell me how many of these can you how many of these skills can you develop using online learning? So there's 17. Just give me a number between 0 and 17 to indicate what you think about how many skills you can develop using online learning. Thank you, Imani. Any more? 8, 9, 10. Okay. In reality, 12 of these skills that I'm talking about can all be developed by you engaging with online learning. So that's the end of my presentation. Oh, sorry, I had 12. Thanks, Gurmeet, Rohan. So I'm just going back to the report that the Dell Technologies talked about. So in addition to saying that half of 85% of the jobs that will exist in 2030, none of the jobs will, most of the jobs haven't been created. In addition to that, they talked about what kind of skills an individual would require in 2030. So they talk about contextualized intelligence. What that essentially means is being able to understand the requirements of the society, the culture, the business that you're in. An entrepreneurial mindset. So we've talked about creativity, being agile, being flexible, and having an attitude to find workarounds or problem solving. Identifying your area of expertise is what personal brand cultivation talks about. Automation literacy is about thinking about how we can use tools, technology to make our lives easier, both home and work life. And then the ability to derive meaning from machine learning outputs and applying that in the human space. So by that, let me just give you an example from my own personal experience. So before my current job, I used to work as the project lead for the Early Alert Indicators project in the Open University. My role was to understand how, or help the university understand how best we could use predictive analytics to support our students in a distance learning situation. And believe me, I don't have a technical background. My background is that I have a BCom. But I do have an understanding of the technology, and I do have a curiosity about the technology and how the predictions are generated. Also, I have a good understanding of how teaching is done in an online environment. Using those bits of knowledge, I was able to then do what I was tasked to do, which is help the university understand how teachers in an online environment can use predictive analytics to support students. Now that's just an example from my personal experience. So now I'm going to open up the forum and ask you to ask me any questions if you like, because that's the end of my presentation.
I'd request the students to raise their hands or type their questions in the chat box. Yes, Avinash?
Yeah.
There is one by the name of Nishika Jalan who has a question.
Nishika, I don't mean to say that you can't develop your listening skills through online learning, but listening skills in a face-to-face situation or scenario are better developed in that kind of a scenario than in an online environment. But you're right. Why can't they be developed through online learning? It's down to your own practice to start thinking about how you can develop those skills that I've just talked about. So if you think that you can use that, you can develop listening skills in an online learning context, that's great. Career opportunities in this field. Polomi, what do you mean by this field? So Polomi's asked me a question. Sorry, she sent it to me privately. So she's saying that how can we know about the various career opportunities in this field, and why are these not heard of that much? So Polomi, could you just clarify what you mean by this field?
Is she trying to ask you something about online platform itself?
So she's talking about digital and digital marketing. So
Perhaps.
Yes, please.
So
Is it?
the reality is that when I was a student of KC Das Commerce College as well, firstly, I had no idea what my career was going to look like. So those of you who said yes, you were better off than me anyway. Right now, those of you who said no or said maybe, don't worry about it. You'll land on your feet as long as you have the right attitude. When it comes to digital marketing and the career opportunities in this field, Palomi, I would encourage you to actually. So you've shown a curiosity now. I would encourage you to do some research. Do some research, just simply either desk research or just do some use Google to start off with. Does that help, Palomi? Thank you. Manjeet, adapting to digital. What's your question? Oh, okay. As long as so my answer will be that is it possible to be an entrepreneur by using this platform? Yes. I mean, most of the Silicon Valley startups, whether it is in California, Bangalore, anybody who has the right digital skills and is prepared for a digital age should be thinking about business in the digital space, being an entrepreneur in a digital space. I mean, how many of you have heard of the story of the guy who owns Alibaba.com? He's a guy even without an MBA. All he had was original thought, understanding of technology, and he now owns that platform. So the key thing is being able to think critically and being able to have original thoughts, because it's your ideas which will make you successful entrepreneurs. Does that help, Manjeet?
Yes, students, please feel free to interact. Do not hesitate, to say, question him.
Yeah, I would like Mr. Avinash to highlight on another aspect, like they have different projects.
Mhm.
Okay, so project work. So
Yeah.
in that case, how they can utilize the different online platforms to gather their data and move ahead. Because right in this situation, they are not in a position to go for field based surveys.
Yeah.
So how they can utilize this platform for different issues?
So, sir, could you just explain to me, are these projects collaborative, as in are the multiple
No, no, no,
students
no.
involved?
It is no, no. Some of them are just their own individual projects.
Okay, let's. So, are these
Different
research?
different themes. Yeah, partly because they are basically trained to understand how to tackle a situation, how to move ahead, how to do a survey, how to get a
Mhm.
database. It's like trying to understand their analytical power.
Okay, brilliant. I mean,
That's
this is what I do on a day-to-day basis, essentially.
hmm.
So the first thing that you need to think about is what your research question is. So you start off with your research question, and then alongside that research question, you need to think about what your hypothesis. What are you trying to answer? So the research question might be, how do people learn online? And your hypothesis A might be that people struggle to learn online. Hypothesis B might be that people enjoy learning online. And then you start thinking about how you collect data uh, from participants, from live participants, to answer the question, the hypothesis, to either prove the hypothesis or disprove the hypothesis. In that situation, and given the situation that you're in terms of the lockdown, the age of COVID, and also the shift to a digital space, think about using all the free tools that are available. So, for example, SurveyMonkey is a very good tool that is, excuse me, available free. You could think about how you're designing the survey. Excuse me, and I'm sure Dr. Barwa and colleagues in KC Das College are giving you the information on how to design a survey as well. What are the things that you need to think about and how to design the survey questions themselves, and then decide what you who are your participants, identifying your participants, thinking about, I don't know whether you have to create I'm checking with you, Dr. Barwa, do they need to create an ethics statement? Do they need to create a participation consent form?
Yeah, they have to finalize certain things like questionnaire, and then they have to go to the places of their interest or the way they wanted to carry out their research work,
Yeah.
and research tools what that they will be using.
Okay.
So they have to prepare that sort of a framework before launching their work.
Okay. I mean, in
But
addition to that, in the digital age, one of the things that you need to think about from a data security perspective is giving people the understanding. So the consent form that we use primarily in the UK is around giving people informed consent, telling them what the data that you're collecting is going to be used for, because one of the key principles around
yes.
data information management is that
Hmm.
I'm not sure whether you're aware of the new legislation, which is primarily related to countries in the EU, but the new data protection legislation is very strict on what data you can collect, and being very clear about why you're collecting the data. And having
Yes.
that kind of rigor is also helpful, because and then you can use the different social media platforms to actually, once you've got your questionnaire, you can think about using the social media platforms, either Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and even, for example, WhatsApp to actually collect your data. And that's where platforms like SurveyMonkey are very good, because all the data that's generated on that questionnaire is stored in one place. So you don't have to collate your data in an Excel sheet, for example. I'm just looking at a couple of comments. So Rohan, you've said, I just want to say that we've got to go with the flow and adapt with the current pandemic situation. Great attitude. We've got to make ourselves skilled with digitalization. Agreed. The sooner we adapt to the current situation, the sooner we will survive, and the survival of the fittest. The only thing I would add to that, Rohan, is that think about, when you're in with your peers, don't think about competition only. Think about co-opetition as well as a concept. Co-opetition is, the word itself is a combination of the two words cooperation and competition. Think about how you can collaborate and at the same time compete, because you yourself on your own may not be, you may be very clever. I don't know you, so I'm not trying to I'm not trying to make any aspersions on your intelligence, but I'm saying that you may not be the most intelligent person at that point in time. It's collaboration that will stand you in good stead, as opposed to simply looking at survival of the fittest. Gursmeep, you're saying, sir, some of the people are hesitating to respond online as they feel that it's spam. How do you deal with it and motivate them to respond? Gursmeep, do you want to talk a little more about this so that I can understand where you're coming from?
I think what Gursmeet was saying was basically with the use of the Zoom application itself, right?
Okay.
So there has been a lot of issue regarding the security of Zoom. So we have been interacting with the students and telling them nothing to worry about, since we are discussing all academics here. But they have some issues with regard to the use of Zoom.
So are we referring to the fact that all the data and the connectivity is going through China, essentially?
Yeah, they feel so. But I don't think so. That is.
I think the one way to deal with that is possibly looking at another tool. So Google have recently released their new video platform for conferencing. Microsoft Teams, all WebEx meeting as well. Microsoft Teams is another option. Skype is another option.
Yeah. We have been using all these tools for the classes.
Yep.
And Zoom seems to have become more popular relatively.
Yes, because it's very easy to use.
Yeah.
So Gushmeet, that's brilliant. I mean, that's you're thinking from a data security, information security point of view, and
yeah.
It is something to be aware of. It's not something to just put on the background. But Dr. Barwa is right. We are not talking about matters related to national intelligence. Yeah.
Since we are discussing academics, so I don't think that should be a problem.
Absolutely.
Because we are also participating in international webinars, national webinars, and interacting a lot over this medium. So that's not an issue, I think.
Absolutely.
So. Right.
See, if we do not have any more questions, Avinash, can we move ahead to the next agenda? That is the vote of thanks.
Okay, I'm going to hand over the hosting back to you. Sorry, bear with me a second. Okay, that's done.
Okay, thank you, Avinash. I'd now like to call upon Dr. Runjun Phukan Coordinator IQAC, to deliver the vote of thanks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Anjita. Am I audible?
Yes,
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 you
you're
are.
very
You
much
can continue.
audible.
I, on behalf of KC Das Commerce College, take the privilege to offer the vote of thanks. At the very onset, I offer my sincere thanks to our principal, Dr. Hrishikesh Borwa, for his wholehearted support and guidance to organize this webinar. I offer my gratitude to the resource person of today's webinar, Mr. Avinash Borwa, for sparing his valuable time to be with us. And thank you, Mr. Borwa, for your excellent presentation on preparing for life in digital age, which will definitely help our students to grow and march ahead to a better future. Your presentation is apt and is the need of the hour. And I'm really very happy his valuable time to be with us. And thank you, Mr. Borwa, for your excellent presentation. White is coming afterwards. And your presentation is very apt and is the need of the hour. I am really very happy to know that you are an alumni of our institution. This itself is an inspiration to our students. I offer my thanks to Anjita Bora, the organizing secretary of today's webinar, for her untiring efforts to make this webinar a success. My special thanks to Pallavi Kakuti and Mr. Tony Bayon for their help throughout, without which it would not have been possible. My sincere thanks to the participants. Without their cooperation, this webinar would not have been a success. Last but not the least, I offer my heartfelt thanks to those who are directly or indirectly associated with this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Runjun Baido.
Thank you, everyone.
So, just a few announcements for our participants. So we have come to an end of today's event. We appreciate your participation. Please submit your valuable feedback by visiting our college website, following the login form available in the webinar button. Feedback submission will be available only for today. To download the participation certificate, you have to again log in using the webinar button after 2 days. But please remember that certificates would be provided only to those participants who have submitted their feedback. A copy of the certificate will also be emailed to the participants. Thank you once again. Thank you, Avinash. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.